This is Rock and Roll Grad School with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling. Beth can hear them calling, but she won't pick up the phone.
Hello, kiddies. We're going to have a good time together. Or should I say we're going to have a real good time together?
I don't know, because sometimes you say real, sometimes you don't. And I feel like when you don't, people must think that it's not real good. Or when you say real good, maybe they think you're lying.
These are all fair thoughts. Pretend today is a weekend day. Take your pick. Pretend we are in a giant grass and tree-filled open gathering spot. Pretend it's some sort of national holiday of celebration.
Okay.
Are you there?
I guess so.
You look so dubious of all of this.
I am. I'm concerned.
You know, I've been accused of taking too long to walk a joke into the landing.
That was a pretty long one.
I feel like if we get the chance to go around the block one more time, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, there's man selling ice cream, at least.
Exactly.
Singing Italian songs.
Yes, exactly. So this week we talk with Keith Howland from the one and only Chicago. Do you know what we should have asked him about? His deep dish pizza.
Oh, he's going to say Detroit style.
I know, he probably would, just to twist the knife.
Mm-hmm.
But he was great. It was a lovely conversation.
He was great. And he took us on a journey of what it's like to be on tour in a way that our other guests really haven't before.
Exactly. So even if you think you don't like Chicago, which you probably just can't remember all of their hits.
But there are so many. I remember some at least.
Right. When he started listing them off, it was I forgot about that one.
Right. There's so many.
What else is there to talk about musically? Is there anything?
In general, or
in general, just in life.
Just in
life.
I think there's nothing left to talk about music, so we should just hang it up right now.
We should, yeah. Well, I think one thing we could say, and I think I've sort of tried to start teasing it out on some of our various social medias. If you are not subscribed to the show, you should do that, because we have a really, really amazing lineup the next. I don't want to say give it an end date so anyone sees the next one and goes, oh, screw that guy. True. But overall, we have a very nice lineup coming in, and a bunch of different genres, a bunch of different things. I think both of us were pushing for one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Do we name some of them? Or do we just say?
I do think we should start teasing them on social a little bit more.
I was going to say, do we say we have a Dap King, a Femme, and a Pistol?
Well, because you've been dying to say it.
I have, but you know.
But you could have said a Dap King, a Femme, walk into a bar with a pistol.
That's true.
Good morning.
You know, I'm just now trying to relearn how to be on the road. You know, last night we got on the bus and it was about a 7-hour bus ride, and I got in my bunk and with my iPad and started watching Star Trek reruns and football games and didn't sleep a wink.
Of course.
And then they had a fire drill in the hotel at noon.
No.
Of course.
So I was dead asleep, and that woke me up. So, welcome back to the road, the glorious, glamorous life of being on the road.
Right.
How are you guys doing?
No fire drills, so I can't complain.
Yeah, good. I did have a fire drill at a hotel once, though, in the middle of the night at the Soho Grand in New York, and that was a disaster. I had a very drunk boss at the time who came down in only a fur coat, pounding on our door, and then tried to stop the fire because they didn't. It wasn't an actual. It was. They thought it was a fire, So it wasn't a scheduled drill. And then she tried to stop the firemen to take pictures with her. We're like, Joe, you gotta get those guys upstairs so we can go back to bed.
Yeah, and it's funny because our assistant tour manager called me before the fire drill and woke me up to tell me there was going to be a fire drill. And the fire drill happened about 20 minutes later. And all it did was there was one chirp in my room, and that was the end of it. And I rolled over and went back to sleep. I was like,
Oh my God.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah.
You know, if he hadn't called me, I probably wouldn't even have heard it. So, oh well.
You said
Welcome back.
Yeah. Well, you said you're getting used to being back out on the road again. How long did it take you the first time to get used to sleeping on a bus? Because all I can think of is I get motion sickness and I feel like I would be miserable. Or does just doing that for X number of days and feeling nauseous, that just goes away after a while?
You know, ironically enough, I used to get really motion sick even on airplanes. And initially, yeah, the tour bus was kind of a challenge because you're kind of bus surfing. You know, you got see legs but I did find though that, you know, if I get a bottom bunk, the top bunks tend to move more because the bus that's higher up.
Right.
So I always tried to get the bottom bunk because it's closer to the road, so it doesn't do as much movement. And yeah, I seem to be fine with it.
How does one claim a bunk on a tour bus? Like, do you have to get there first? Do you have to bribe the driver? Like, how do you ensure you get that bunk?
Well, you know what? I mean, ironically enough, when I first joined the band, so back then there were two buses. There was bus one and bus two. Bus number one was all the original guys. It was Walt, Jimmy Lee, and Robert, and our tour manager. And bus two was everybody else, which was me, Jason Sheff, Tristan Bowden, Bill Champlin, and then our assistant tour manager. And when I came in, I was replacing Dwayne Bailey, who had been on that bus. So they basically just said, bottom left bunk, backside, that's your bunk. So it became my bunk for 20 some odd years. Now we've just in recent couple of years, we've changed up. Now we have 3 buses, but I still have the bottom left bunk. That's mine.
Nice.
I have seniority around here now.
That's nice.
So,
I was gonna say,
Well
like
done.
you, no matter what time of day or night you stumble onto the bus, it's just I just got to hit bottom left and I'm good.
Right. Now I get to be the guy running around going, listen, new guy, you're not taking that bunk.
I mean, it seems like you guys have had a pretty, yes, there have been change outs in the band, but it's been a pretty consistent lineup for a while now, hasn't it?
Well, I mean, the current lineup has probably got about 3 years in its current configuration.
Right.
We went through a period there where Jason left and then Jeff Coffey came in. And so then it was kind of that was only for about 1.5 years. And then Tris and Jeff left. And then we had to replace those 2 guys with 3 guys. So Walfredo, who was our percussionist, moved over to drums. Then we hired Ray Islas to play percussion. Then we got Neil to sing the tenor vocals and Brett to play bass. So it was a bit of a shakeup there when Jeff and Tris left. But no, I mean, the funny thing about this band is they don't hire anybody that's a hack. You know what I mean?
Imagine that.
So it's always good musicians. And so, you can go on Facebook and watch people argue over, oh, well, I like Jeff Coffey. Oh, I like Jason. Bring Jason back. Oh, no, Neil's the best. It's like there's always argument of, with the exception of the original guys. And that's pretty much if you go on to any kind of social media for any band, anybody that's not an original member is always, available for intense criticism.
Right.
Right.
So,
I mean, Sorry, I was going to say Ron Wood is still considered. He says he's the new guy in the Stones, and he's only been there 35 years now.
Isn't that funny?
So, and I mean, to say nothing of the guy that you replaced. I mean, I was just watching the documentary on the band, and so much of the early success and the heartbeat of that group was what Terry Kath brought to that band. And so you've got some very, very big shoes to fill.
Well, I like to always say that the shoes that I had to fill were also worn and tried on by Chris Pinnock, Donnie Dacus, Dwayne Bailey. I didn't have the unenviable task of having to step straight into Terry Kath's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that would have been rough. But I had a 3 guitar player buffer between me and him, so that kind of took a little bit of the load off on that one. You know, like when Jason came into the band, I mean, he was 23 years old and he stepped right into Peter Cetera's spot, and that was the comparison. You know, and that's tough. And he was 23. He was a kid.
Yeah.
You know, I was 30.
Still a kid.
This is my 27th trip around the sun with these guys.
That's crazy.
I'm not a young buck anymore.
None of us are. But that, you know, also to kind of your earlier points about, you know, how the everyone's up for that criticism whenever anyone new comes in. But when you see your shows, it certainly doesn't translate to them not wanting to be there. I mean, your band is so beloved. You have come in and just, I think for any group of musicians with intensive, incredible musicians that you guys have, and putting it out and all of that to maintain and continue to grow your fan base is unreal.
Yeah, you know, one thing I will say, you know, and I'm not going to point fingers at any legacy acts or anybody, but I do feel that, you know, this band has consistently brought an energetic show,
right.
And you know, we don't sound like an old band. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just actually watching on YouTube. I saw a couple clips of my buddies over in the Doobie Brothers who are out right now with Michael McDonald back in the saddle, and man, they're throwing down. I mean, I was so proud of them. Michael McDonald sounds exactly the same as he ever did. I mean, his voice is in top form. He's got to be in his early 70s, but he's incredible. So, you know, sometimes the wine ages well, I guess, you know.
Absolutely.
Well, and I mean, to that point, it seems too that the earlier incarnations of this band threw down a pretty large gauntlet for anyone coming after to try to pick up. Like you were talking about the energy of the shows and the fact that it's, you know, you can't really coast, like that you've just got to go out there, and you see it from, you know, all the footage of the band playing throughout the years. Like there is a level of, like you said, professionalism and mastery of the instrument that this is not a figure it out once we get out there.
Now, there's no coasting in this band. There really isn't. And the music demands a lot of attention. You know, this is not a 3-chord pop band. This is, you know, there's a lot going on. You gotta pay attention. And but it's really you know, I wouldn't have it any other way, because, you know, I'd probably want to shoot myself if I was in, like, I won't name any names, but just some other, some other band with sort of just trite songs with nothing chord changes. And, you know, the music is so complex that, because people have asked me a number of times, you know, well, tell me one song that you're absolutely sick of playing, that you just wish you never had to play it again. I can't really name anything. The musicianship is so good that it's so much fun to play, the songs,
Mm-hmm.
and the material is so good that, even after, I've probably played, let's see, 100 shows a year, 27 years. I've probably played Saturday in the Park 2,700 times, but it's still fun, plus the crowd reacts, and that's always a great thing. And 25 or 6 to 4, of course, with the longest guitar solo known to man. That's always fun.
How long did it take you from joining to figure, all right, I feel pretty confident about going out here and doing this? Just to learn the style and to say nothing of just chord progressions.
You know what? I grew up listening to this band. It was in my DNA, pretty much. So when I got called for the audition, or when I busted in on the audition, it was kind of like being home for me. It was like the music was, like I say, it was ingrained in me. All I really needed to do was just kind of sit down and get it under my hands, because it was all up here. And, except for the first few shows where I was just sort of, I don't know if terrified is the right word, but we had one rehearsal before I played my first live show with the band. And we played through the set, and, they had booked a week of rehearsals. And the first day we played through the show, and all the guys looked at each other and went, I don't know, see you in Vegas. And I went, can we play through the show one more time, please? So we did a second run through. And then the next time I played with the group was like 3.5 weeks, later in Vegas. And I practiced a lot, though.
I was going to say, what was that lead up like those 3 weeks on your own? Was it just morning, noon, night practicing, or was it just already so in your soul it was not too bad?
I was putting in probably 6-7 hour days playing these songs over and over and over. I wanted to make sure that it was so ingrained that, once the lights hit me, I wasn't going to, flip out and forget. So, but that's the last time I ever had to rehearse that hard. Now right. I'm probably guilty of maybe, let's just say during the pandemic in that 1.5 years we were off, I didn't pick my guitar up very often. I kind of had to work myself back into shape. About a week before we went back out on the road, I got the guitar on and started playing, and my fingers were bleeding and my calluses were gone, and but it came back, so I'm okay now.
How often do you guys change up the set list? Because Jimmy Buffett has what he refers to as the songs he has to play if he wants to leave the venue alive. And you guys certainly have a list of songs that people are expecting to hear. But how much outside of that do you guys get to kind of play around with stuff? How much of it is the kind of original members being like, let's dig this up? Or is it the new guys being like, you know what, I would love to take a shot at something off, the second or third record?
Well, I don't know if you're aware or not, but 3 years ago, I think 4 years ago, we did the entire second record as the first set of our show, right? Mm-hmm. And then did a greatest hits thing in the second set. And even I, as degenerate of a fan of all the obscure stuff, was thinking to myself, really? I'm not sure about this, how is this going to go over? And you saw people posting online saying things like, all they did for the first set was their new music. They didn't even realize that it was, an old album, or, and then the hardcore fans that always are critical that we don't do enough deep cuts. We did that essentially for them, And now they're still complaining about the fact that now the set is kind of, they never do anything different. It's like, well, weren't you there 3 years ago? We did a lot different. But you know, I've lobbied from time to time and say, you know, hey, can we like just find a slot in a show where maybe we like rotate just an obscure album cut, you know, just maybe have 4 or 5 of them rehearsed and just rotate them night to night, you know, and then the fans will get excited about it and, you know, seem to want to, you know, these guys have learned over the years. And it's funny, I've been in the band long enough now that I like I say, I used to kind of be kicking and screaming about, you know, oh, we've got to play. You know, there was a year, it was like 2001. I think I'd been in the band 6 years. And I got actually lobbied and got hit by Varese from the 5th album put into the set, which is, you know, odd time and, you know, a lot of improvisation, horn solos. We played it twice and they went, it's not working. People were getting up to go get drinks and, you know, so we pulled it. And, you know, supposedly years and years ago, Terry Kath in the 70s wanted to go out on the road and do nothing but sort of like, I don't know if I'd call it jazz improv, but like, you know, more jammy, just long extended improvisations and that kind of thing. And they were losing their audience. And at that point, you know, they realized, you know, that worked in like 1969, but in 1975, after all the hits the band had, people were coming to hear Saturday in the Park and Just You and Me. And, you know, they want those, so much to their dismay, you know, I could sit here and probably put you together a set list of hit songs that we're not playing that could support a show.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, we're not playing I Don't Want to Live Without Your Love, You're Not Alone, Along Comes a Woman, Love Me Tomorrow, Stay the Night, Baby What a Big Surprise, No Tell Lover. I mean, there's tons of hit songs that we can't even fit in, and we're doing 2.5 hour show. You know,
nice problems to have. I mean,
those are
right.
Quality problems, indeed.
Fabulous.
You know, and then, but we're doing things like, you know, like Introduction, and you know, there are things in there that are a little more proggy, doing the whole ballet. You know, 12 minutes of twiddly bits and hits.
Yeah.
So.
See, nobody's getting up to get beer then.
No, not well. Yeah.
Somebody's always getting beer.
That's true.
That's true. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're playing, somebody's getting up for beer. Can't help it.
I almost jumped in on a thread on Facebook yesterday. You know, some people just, you know, the band's been around for what, 54 years, right? So as one guy just kept, it was in a thread, and this guy just kept chiming in and saying, they're just a cover band. They're just a cover band. They're just a cover band. Bring Peter, Danny, and, you know, Donnie Dacus back. They're just a cover band. And it's like, I wanted to just reply and say, please don't come see us. Thank you. You know,
right.
Just guess what? We're doing just fine without you. You know, and
do you ever chime in?
And the fact of the matter is, the majority of the material that we're playing on in the current set was either written by Robert Lamb or James Pankow. And they're both on stage, right? And then Lee, who's also an original member, playing trumpet, and he also wrote a couple of the hits that we're playing. So the only guy that's not standing up there that wrote stuff would be Terry Kath and rest in peace, he can't come back.
Right.
And Peter Cetera, who is retired.
Yeah.
So, you know, what are you going to do? Can't please everybody else.
You can't. Have you ever chimed in, positive or negative? Have you ever just started chatting in one of those threads with fans?
Only positively.
Yeah.
I try to stay away from, you know.
But even positively, they have to freak out when you respond. Like, that has to be the coolest thing ever.
I've jumped in on occasion. Tris, our drummer from previously, he used to get heavily involved in some of those, and he would kind of shut people down. It was pretty funny to see, because then all of a sudden people are like apologizing and, oh no,
Right.
He didn't really mean.
It was a joke.
Didn't really mean that.
Somebody hacked my page.
It's funny when you get people that are just sitting at their computer, you know, and can hide behind a, you know, screen name. And I mean, this one guy, I swear, I mean, what a waste of time. This guy literally posted, it was in a thread that probably lasted for like 4 hours, and they're just a cover band. I'll never go see them. They're just a cover band. It's like, what kind of life do you have? You know, what's the point with doing that?
When you always see those things of somebody doing that, or somebody being just very negative and sort of like trying to kind of just undercut everybody. And then when somebody, in this instance from the band, goes, well, we're good then. Suddenly this like realization of, oh, I didn't realize that you guys were looking at this. Like
Right.
I didn't think that.
Right. They don't realize that the band's actually seeing it.
Right. And when you're on that bus ride for 7 hours, you got nothing else to do but sit there and read this stuff.
Right. Well, you know what? I've learned over the years too to try not to, you know, I know guys that actually go around digging for that kind of stuff. You know, they want to find, they're looking for the, you know, the positive things, but then they come across the negatives too. Right. And the fact of the matter is none of us are going to come off unscathed. Right. And, you know, and I learned a long time ago that if you're going to read your good press and then wear it and feel good about it, then you have to read your bad press and kind of wear that too. So, you know, I know there was another thing I had to learn a number of years ago, that I know when I've had a good night and when I've had a bad night. And I know when I feel good about how I played or how I performed and when I didn't. And fortunately, there's less bad nights than good nights. But every once in a while, your biorhythms are off, you're a little off your game, whatever. And in a band of 10 guys, nobody really notices because, you know, you're being carried by everybody else. And, you know, somebody will come up to me after the show and say, man, you sounded great tonight. And I used to say, like, nah, you know, I didn't have a good show tonight. And then I realized, you know, what I'm saying is you don't know what you're talking about. You know, it's almost insulting to say that. So I learned now to keep that to myself and just say, thank you. You know, glad you enjoyed the show. Now I'm going to go on the bus and cry.
So in doing, obviously we're fans of the band, but doing research and all of that, in reading your bio on the band's websites, probably my favorite bio I've ever read on any website ever. Wow. And I need to get out more. I might need to read more, but it was fantastic.
It's long.
And your story, but it's great. The detail is there and you get a feel for who you are and how you're, you know, the story of how you did, you force your way to the audition or however you want to phrase it. I mean, it's one of those legendary rock stories, and even your encounter with Peter Cetera years ago. But I want to know if you were still channel your inner Karen Carpenter.
Oh, she's always in there, of course. Sometimes I'll wrap the microphone cord around my fingers just for old times sake. I've got pictures of me when I was like 7 years old, you know, channeling my inner Karen Carpenter back before my voice changed. Actually, my voice probably higher than hers at that point. But no, I was the Carpenters were probably the first. The Carpenters and the Beatles. And you know, the Beatles, I kind of came into the party a little bit late. It was like I had the Beatles' greatest hits, you know, so I knew all the hits, but I wasn't like deep into the catalog like Jimmy and Robert and Lee and those guys, you know. Like when they all dropped acid and listened to Sgt. Pepper's, that like changed the band forever. They were actually a show band at that point, you know, with suits and ties. And when Sgt. Pepper came out and they heard that record, they went back to the club and Terry Kath said, you know, screw this. The suits are coming off. We're playing our own material. No more Motown hits. And they got fired from the club, of course, for doing that, but it set them on a path, you know. When they heard "Got to Get You Into My Life" and, you know, with the horns, and they were like, that's what we got to be doing. But how did that relate to me? Oh, the Carpenters, just, you know, that was probably one of the first groups that their vocal harmonies in particular, you know, were just off the chain. Richard Carpenter's vocal arrangements and the way they stacked that stuff up. You know, I cut my teeth on that stuff, and then in came Chicago, and you know, that was a whole other. I'll never forget the day. You know, my brother brought home Chicago 2. I had heard, does anybody really know what time it is? Beginnings on the radio, but my brother brought Chicago 2 home in quadraphonic stereo, 4 speakers, you know, and we sat right in the middle of his bedroom and listened to it. And the horns were coming from back there, and the band was up here, and we were knocked out.
I saw you've got this ridiculously large box set of the Carnegie Hall shows coming out soon.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any plans to sort of recreate those sets? Because that seems such a legendary and
wow
step to in the band's lifestyle, or in the band's status. Like, those shows seem to be pretty legendary.
I doubt it. I haven't heard any rumblings of that. I haven't even heard it, to be honest with you. Nobody's given me a copy of it yet. So
you don't know anyone?
I'll be curious. I'll be curious to hear it though. Because, you know, that record always for me was, you know, the audio quality was kind of not great. The horns sounded real thin and small, and that room is not really made for a rock band, Carnegie Hall, you know, and they were a rock band. So I don't know whatever Lee and Tim Jessup did to kind of clean it up and make it sound warmer and fatter and bigger. And plus, you know, they recorded every night they were there, and I don't remember how many nights it was, but you know, so they cherry picked the performances for the one record, so you actually get to hear you know, variations on the theme, as it were. That's what I'll be curious to hear, because I know you know, Terry was sort of a wild child in the sense that I don't think he really ever played anything the same way twice. I'm sure there were hints of the same stuff, but when he was soloing and stuff, I think he was just kind of flying off the cuff and just letting it go. I tend to be a little bit more, I find things that work and kind of stick with them, you know, so I'm not quite as, but then again, the band is a little different now than it was back then, you know. It was, so I'll be just kind of curious to hear from almost like a jam band perspective, just how much they veered off from all these different songs night to night and just did different things. Because, you know, I'm sure, you know, back then there was nothing confining you with an arrangement like a click track or anything like that. So they could, one night the solo could be 16 bars, the next night it could be 48 bars, the next night maybe they'd go on for 5 minutes, until they came back around into the tune. So, the more jazz inflected stuff would be interesting for me to hear, to just see how much they varied. Because I saw the band several times back in their heyday, and they were amazing in every incarnation I saw. I liked them all personally. I saw the Chicago 16 tour. It was right when Hard to Say I'm Sorry came out. It was at my college. I was a freshman in college, and that was the Peter Cetera story. How do you sing so? He rolled the window up on me, but
Love that.
that was when Champlin was like brand new in the group, and Chris Pinnick was brand new in the group, and they had a fire under them because they'd had a couple of albums that didn't do really well, and all of a sudden they were having this resurgence, and the band was on fire. Peter was singing great, Danny was playing great, Chris Pinnick was shredding. It was cool. And I think probably in my bio it said in there, I kind of was hanging out, looking into the stage doors backstage, thinking about what a lucky guy Chris Pinnick was. I could see him smoking a cigarette and just kind of walking around. It's like, wow, he's got the best gig in the world. He gets to play with Chicago. So, and then God decided to mock me, and now 27 years later.
Careful what you wish for.
Chris was in the band for 3 years. So, but no, it's been an incredible ride, and I'm still enjoying it. The peripherals of being on the road, the 7-hour bus rides, the being away from family, that's gotten harder over the years, just by design. That's kind of what they say, that they don't pay us to play the music. They pay us to be out here traveling and missing a lot of stuff, and birthdays, graduations, so, but the 2 hours on stage is always fun. And that's what makes it worth it.
Waiting for the break of day.
Chicago is on tour right now, so if you're looking to see Keith and the band in the Carolinas, Columbus, or Topeka, check out their website, chicagotheband.com.
You can check us out on all the various socials. Be sure to visit our website at rockandrollgradschool.com, and don't forget to leave us a review.
Today's show is produced by myself and Heidi Hegquist. Our reluctant producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe. Thank you, good night, and may all your favorite bands stay together.